Coming up today on Retirement Made Simple, we're talking long-term care. It can be a tough subject for a lot of people, but we'll be taking a look at some strategies and new approaches to long-term care that can hopefully help make it a little less scary. Plus, you might walk away from today's show with some actionable steps you can take today to start making a difference for your financial future. We outline those steps for you in today's checklist challenge. Retirement Made Simple starts right now.
This is Retirement Made Simple with E.A. Buck. E.A. Buck focuses on finances, preservation, and retirement. Led by Chief Executive Officer Katie Buck and Chief Investment Officer Jeff Buck, E.A. Buck helps you grow and preserve what you've worked a lifetime to build. Each week, Katie and Jeff help you tackle some of the biggest challenges in retirement, including retirement planning, retirement taxes, wealth management, Social Security, and navigating federal benefits. Welcome to Retirement Made Simple.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Amy Sharp here with Jeff Buck, Chief Investment Officer, and John Ingraham, Private Wealth Manager. We're talking long-term care on today's show. What does it entail? How expensive could it be? And ways to better prepare. And with me now, Jeff and John, and looking forward to this topic. This is something that we tend to kind of sprinkle into our conversations each time we meet up because it does play such a big role in someone's retirement plan. For someone out there, let's just kind of take this back. If there is someone out there watching right now and they're saying, this doesn't apply to me, I'm not going to ever need long-term care, what would you say to them?
Well, first, I'd hope that they understand what self-funding means and what it would cost to self-fund for long-term care. Second, I would just indicate some basic statistics, which number one, 70% of individuals 65 currently, at age 65 currently, 70% of them are going to be eligible for long-term care needs, which means they're unable to perform 2 of 6 daily activities, or there's a cognitive impairment of some sort. That's a huge statistic when you actually think about that. On top of that, if you think about the cost associated with long-term care, most people can't afford to self-fund. When I say self-fund, it means that you have enough in personal assets to where you can live the rest of your life, and if you need care for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, you can pay for that. And on top of that, you're not going to leave your spouse destitute. And if you care to leave something behind for the kids, you'll still have something for that. So for those individuals, for our clients that can self-fund, we're happy to talk through how to do that. But for others that make up the majority of our population, let's just face some of the facts and let's have an honest conversation about long-term care. And let's have an honest conversation about what we should be considering.
And that is easy for us to say up here, right? Easy for you. You have these conversations every day. For someone who does not believe that they're going to do this, and according to all these numbers, that it's pretty high that people will need this, why do you think people don't want to have this conversation?
Probably the same reason why I didn't want to see a primary care physician for 10 years. Sure. In all of my 30s into my early 40s, I just kind of avoided it. And when I got sick, I addressed it as I needed to, but I never actually had anybody that gave me any insight and clarity, and nobody that I saw understood any of my history. When it comes to long-term care, people don't want to face the reality that it's an uncomfortable conversation. The idea that I'm going to be unable to perform daily activities in the future and I'm going to prepare for that, that takes just, I think, a real reality check to say, how do I get ahead of this? How do I make sure that I don't become a burden to the family? How do I make sure that I don't become a burden to my spouse? How do I make sure that I don't deplete our family assets? And it's easier to avoid than it is face realities, which I think is why it's so important that you can have that conversation with somebody that you trust, that's knowledgeable, that can provide more than just one solution.
Okay, who pays for long-term care? You mentioned the term self-funded. We know what that means. Insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, who can help?
You know, Amy, it's a combination of all those things. It's very, very expensive, okay? And the stats prove that. Medicaid, over $100 billion a year. Medicare, over $60 billion a year, or excuse me, $80 billion a year. And then you, the consumer, over $60 billion. Plus there's other groups that come in to try to help out. Very expensive, and that might be one of the reasons that people avoid that conversation. But like Jeff says, you're going to probably be a victim of the statistics, so you might as well do something about it, right?
Is long-term care part of that overall retirement plan? We talk about how important it is to have that plan in place. Does that get woven in there?
It does, but most don't want it, and they don't even attempt to do it. Only 40% of the people that we come in contact with have some kind of
They're
plan.
choosing not to place it in there. Okay.
Yep, and it's choosing it primarily because of all the outside noise, the expense. It's more fun to talk about vacations than it is being in a facility like Jeff says. But statistically, you got to have those facts in front of them. Most of the people we sit down with don't even know what the cost is going to be. And I think that's helpful once you go over the cost and show them the facts. You can even pick which states you want to live in. There's better states. And so I think that's really important thing is to know where you're going to go. Even if you don't use it, have a plan. I like to use alternative products so no matter if they use it or don't, those assets stay in the bloodline and the family line. That would be my solution.
That cost is a big one, isn't it? It's just having that knowledge ahead of time, I would think I would want to know.
I think it's associated with cost and then kind of a fear of loss, meaning if I have to pay what I know is an expensive premium on a monthly basis or an annual basis indefinitely, and I don't believe I'm going to ever qualify for it, first of all, then it's hard for me to want to buy into it. But then you add on top of that, what if I use it or what if I don't use it long enough to really get my money out of it? Then it's all lost, right? And that uncontrollable aspect is one thing that I think discourages individuals, besides just the reality check that they don't want to have ownership for the future when it means diminishing capacity. And instead they look at, well, I'm just going to defer this, defer this, defer this. And unfortunately, it becomes a subject that then we have to breach in their 80s. Yeah. And I'm sure you've had those conversations like I've had, where people come in and one of the regrets was not addressing this 20 years earlier.
Okay, great insights. We're off to a great start. Stick around. We've got much more coming up. We've talked about problems. Up next, we'll talk about possible solutions. And later, Jeff and John are in the hot seat for Retirement IQ. Stay tuned.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
With Jeff Buck and John Ingraham of EA Buck Retirement Services. Jeff and John, we're talking today about long-term care, and we've covered a bit about why this can be a difficult subject, but now we want to talk about how we can help make things a little bit more manageable. Let's start, where would you suggest that someone starts when it comes to long-term care? If they're out there and they're listening to this right now and thinking, okay, I'm ready. Where do I begin?
That's a great question. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, so where you begin is you got to talk about it, okay? And people don't want to talk about it because of all the noise they've heard that is bad news, stress. I mean, they depict it on the TV, they show it in movies, they show the end, and that is someone's in a bed and they're tied up and it's a horrible scene that we've painted in the picture. But it's not really that way. It could be a progressive plan. Just like life is, It could be that they might need some kind of care at home initially. Most people that I speak with would just like to age at home. That'd be a great alternative. So it could be just that. If they need more care, then they're going to need to advance that. Maybe it's assisted living, And then maybe the final step might be that they need some kind of nursing home care. Could be. But I think you got to have a plan for it, okay? And if you don't talk about it and have that plan, that brings on more fear. That brings on more stress.
And I'll just add to that for a second, only because, you bring up all this negativity that's out there because the perceptions, and yet at the other side, I think about the people that I know that are living on golf courses in different parts of the country, whether it's, the legendary Florida parts or whether it's Oregon, and the conversations I get to have with these people 3, 4, 5, 10 years in to kind of pre-planning for what their needs might be. But instead, it's just the facility is a beautiful house on a golf course where they have access to anything from a meal to full care. And that's a different way to think about long-term care in your future versus just, I'm going to fake it until I can't make it.
Yeah, it is. It's like this progression that so many different tiers are offered nowadays, probably that weren't offered for our parents or grandparents. And you can move into these communities, if you will. So, but that long-term care, you build that into your plan because that ultimately could be the case, right, John?
Yeah, and the other thing is this, Amy. Let's face it. The generation that we just came through, the boomer generation, they were raised in families that took care of each other. I know my grandmother moved in with us, and she got our bedroom.
Natural.
Yeah, it was natural, and we loved Grandma. She would bake us cookies and make us. It was a nice experience. My other grandmother, we used to have in a nursing home, and it was frightening to see the way that they treated her, and I wouldn't care for that. But she had rheumatoid arthritis, and so she needed care. So there's all that going on. I really think that, again, Jeff has addressed it best. You got to have some kind of plan of where it's going to be and how you're going to go about paying for it, right, Jeff?
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a few minutes. And I'm just going to suggest the audience actually write a few things down because maybe it'll start getting them to brainstorm ideas to think outside the box of traditional long-term care. First of all, we talked about self-funding. And I think to self-fund, you really need to be confident that you and your family can afford that. Second, traditional long-term care policies. For those that can qualify for care, you can purchase a traditional long-term care policy, pay a premium monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annually, basically for the rest of your life, or until you qualify for that care. Some things to understand, those premiums are going to go up most likely. I've seen them go up drastically over the years. I'm not personally a huge fan of those types of policies only because I can't control that cost, and it's difficult to have a conversation with the client as costs are increasing and they're decreasing their benefits to try to keep things in line. The other types of policies would be modified whole life or modified permanent life insurance like universal life, where you can, if you can qualify, buy a life insurance policy on yourself. Therefore, you know that when you die, that policy will pay out a death benefit to your heirs. But many of these policies now have added riders, and in most states, these riders are available to where you can now utilize the death benefit, or at least the majority of that death benefit, to cover your care. One of the things I like about those policies, they're indemnity plans. And because they're an indemnity plan, all that means is that you have to indicate through your doctor you're unable to perform 2 of 6 daily activities or you have a cognitive impairment once a year, and a check gets cut. And you can use that check to pay your kids, your grandkids, whoever you choose to. They don't have to be a qualified caregiver to help stay at home and keep you at home if that's the goal. Or you can use it to pay for it for a full-fledged care system. The other would be some unique annuity strategies where you can actually use an annuity. You don't have any qualification for that, but the annuity will have an enhanced rider to it, and that rider will then create leverage so more than just the premium and growth can be used to cover long-term care. Once again, it's not necessarily a use it or lose it thing, because if you pass away before you utilize the benefits, there would most likely be a death benefit, which is going to be essentially maybe your premium, maybe some growth, or maybe something a little less than your premium that's going back to the beneficiaries. So just a different strategy. And then the other is just a modified approach. Maybe you look at it as, hey, I can fund X because I do have a pension or I do have Social Security, but I can't fund the difference. So how do I bridge that gap? And let's just do an analysis Identify what we need to consider here. Consider inflation, right? The cost of increases over time. And we know inflation in long-term care is much more rampant than inflation in other areas, especially as we have a very large demand, thanks to the baby boomer population, now going towards that need in the next decade. So get ahead of it, is all I'm suggesting, and give yourself those options so you can feel comfortable indefinitely.
Okay, great insight.
Yeah, so more control is what he's saying. Maybe less tax by using that modified life policy in a bigger estate when you leave this earth.
That could be a goal.
Love it. All right, thank you so much. Straight ahead, Jeff and John are both in the hot seat for Retirement IQ. And later, what are some simple, actionable steps you can take to potentially help improve your financial future? Jeff and John have your checklist challenge. Stay with us.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow so you can enjoy your retirement today.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
And now it's time to put our knowledge to the test with this week's Retirement IQ. One of my favorite segments. I hope it's yours as well. I know you guys are always ready for these. You seem to always get them right.
I don't know if we've gotten them all right.
You've been pretty close. Uh-oh, we've jinxed it now.
Yeah, I think
you ready?
so. You might have.
You ready to go?
ready.
Okay. First
Pressure's
question.
on.
John, you're up first. According to a Merrill Lynch study, most respondents indicated that when doing a fun thing, this aspect of the activity mattered to them most. It's an interesting question. I'm
You know, it
wondering
always
what-
comes down to this, Amy.
Okay.
It always comes down to this, doesn't it, Jeff? It's not what, it's who. It's who they do that activity with. And I think about my work. I want to do it with the people that I enjoy. If I'm going to do an activity, I don't want to go with some buddy-duddy. I want to go out there and have some fun with people I enjoy. So it's the
is.
people they do it with.
You're absolutely right. And I do think about that. We kind of have that stigma when we get older of like, well, I don't have to put up with that anymore. I want to be around people that I enjoy. And that is obviously very, very clear in this question. Okay, question number 2, it's actually true or false. 82% of respondents to a Northwestern Mutual study indicated that they find retirement planning to be a fun and exciting experience. This has got to be good to hear. I'm curious if you're going to have the answer to this one, but
I just
for
love
what
how
you
you
think-
give me the easy one. So thank you for
Oh,
that.
you think it's
Yeah.
easy?
Yeah, I mean, 82% of people think that sitting down and spending time to talk through their financial
if you're
situation.
doing all the work, it's fun.
I don't know if it's fun. I mean, I think we have fun with it, and I will say maybe 30s, 40s, 50%, but I would say that's false. I don't believe 82% of individuals are really excited about looking at the financial future.
Yeah, actually, that 82% said it is not fun or exciting at all. So it's very, very much clear
There you
that
go.
very, very much the opposite. Okay, question number 3, true or false? On average, more than 1 in 5 Americans still have mortgage debt at age 75. This one is coming back to you, Jeff.
Okay.
I
Well,
wanted,
I
I
do
wanted
know
to
that
up the
double
you
up
know,
on me because you gave me an easy
Yeah,
one.
the
Thank you.
challenge
I
here.
appreciate that. I will say confidently that it's definitely more than 20% of individuals 75 currently have mortgages. And I think part of that part of it was just misguided. Hey, what was the plan and what's the reality? But I think another part is just things have changed. I mean, interest rates were historically low a few years ago, and when you can lock in a 30-year mortgage and get that at 2.75%, you might be reconsidering how important it is to pay off that mortgage with the assets that might be earning more than 2.75%. So it just depends on their financial situation, but I know for a fact that it's definitely more than 1 in 5
Yeah.
carry that mortgage.
25%, up from 5% in 1955.
Makes sense.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, John, let's go back to you with this question. Which of the following is the top source of income for Americans in retirement? And I'll give these to you and you can let me know what you think here. Pensions, insurance products, retirement savings dividends, or Social Security?
Well, they all can be part of it, but it's Social Security. That's the right answer.
Okay,
You
you're
know,
right.
I think it's important also about Social Security that you see a planner or you get some facts before you take it. It does show you that you can compound that at 8% if you wait after your full retirement. You're also going to subtract 8%. It is frightening that most people live on that Social Security and depend on it. If they have a major event in their life, what's going to happen? So, you know, when they sit down with Jeff or myself or any of our planners, we're going to run a Social Security report. We're going to show them the difference in black and white. It's all math of what to do about that Social Security and when to take it.
Yeah, and it's a good point. And I know you mentioned compound, and what you're meaning is just the ability to compound growth on top of other assets. You do get the simple interest on top of those deferral years between maybe 66 and 70 for those that are deferring, and getting 8% on a return provided to them, plus inflation adjustments, can be quite substantial. So taking into consideration what Social Security is going to look like for somebody, and knowing that you just mentioned 62% of individuals will indicate that Social Security is their largest asset or income stream, it seems like that would make a lot of sense to actually create a plan around that and understand how to utilize Social Security to its fullest.
Okay, yeah, pensions, definitely a thing of the past, aren't they?
They unfortunately
Dinosaurs.
are, but you know there are ways to create self-funded pensions, and I think that's a really fun conversation to have with individuals where they have control over it, they create it for themselves, they have certainty, and they have contractual obligations that support it, so they know they can't outlive it, or maybe their spouse can't outlive it, and so it doesn't have to be a thing of the past, but it currently is, you know, a diminishing asset at this point. You're not seeing pensions very commonly being offered through carriers this often, you know, companies today.
You call it vintage, maybe?
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe they're vintage.
There you go.
Those are coming. Things
Yeah,
are coming
you don't
back.
have a pension, do you?
So there you go. No, I do not.
okay.
Sorry. Thanks for asking, though. Still to come, you'll learn some of the simple steps you can take to help you improve your situation. Because how useful is knowledge without action? Stay tuned.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Thanks for joining us today on Retirement Made Simple with Jeff Buck and John Ingraham. And it has been a great conversation today, an important one, really. I think we've all learned so much as we go through the topic of long-term care, what we need to be thinking about, and just kind of being proactive about the whole conversation itself. And as we always say, as we get to the end of our conversation, knowledge is power, especially when we talk about this topic.
Yep, I agree. I know John does as well, and I just say what I traditionally say from Dale Carnegie, and that is that knowledge isn't power until you truly apply it. And so hopefully from today's episode, the audience is thinking through some of the discussion that we had over the last half an hour. And you know, the idea of thinking beyond just the traditional scope of long-term care or the fear base of long-term care, but instead, how can you implement a plan that incorporates what long-term care could mean to you, and understand that long-term care isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it also is a reality for 70% of those that are 65. And so why would we avoid it, correct? And so from that, I'd just close with a couple of key points. And I'd say number one, you really want to just understand, can you afford long-term care? Can you afford the cost associated with it today if you needed it? And if you can afford it without interrupting, without sacrificing your spouse and their financial freedom, without sacrificing whatever it is you choose to give back to the community or your kids, then don't worry about it. But if you can't afford it, or you don't know what it's going to cost you, well, isn't that going to create fear if you don't address it? And won't that fear just build up over time?
Does for
as
me.
we get closer and closer to that potential need? So why don't we just address it? And why don't we attempt to avoid the fear that is probably avoidable by creating a plan? And maybe it's your traditional plan of long-term care. Maybe it's a plan that's somewhat alternative. Maybe it's a combination of things. But I think with any traditional financial planner that's skilled in this area, they'll be able to talk through all the facets of long-term care needs.
Okay, John, final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts is exactly what Jeff says. You know, get a plan in place. Once you do that, that fear is going to come down. It's going to make you more relaxed. Whether you can do it or not, at least you'll know. It's better to have a plan that you can control than it being forced upon you. That's my final thought. So I think the key is get somebody that can help you through this. Sit down with somebody. If your advisor's not willing to do it, any of our offices, we're willing to do it for you, okay?
And that's a good point. To many of these topics that we talk about here on the show, if you don't have someone that's helping you through this conversation, this facet of retirement, specifically today being long-term care, it is time to seek a second opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, we have offices in multiple states across the Pacific to the Atlantic. I know that our offices are equipped to be able to address these types of concerns. And I get excited about addressing the concern because I know that it's a concern that was possibly weighing down on my prospect, my client's mind for months or years. And to be able to walk out with a sense of clarity, I think creates a sense of freedom financially for individuals. And it's just about creating a retirement plan that is truly simple enough to be able to understand and walk away with and have a document that supports so that you can have that sense of control.
Thanks to both of you. Great insight as always. And now you might want to consider acting on what you've learned from today's show. For Jeff, John, and the team at EA Buck Financial Services, I'm Amy Sharp. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.